Okay, hello. Hope everybody is doing well today. Let's just give me a quick second here. Just want to make some quick adjustments. And there we go. Okay, that looks good. Awesome. Okay, all right, good. We already got people on both YouTube and my Zoom audience, which is great. If you have questions for me, first of all, let me know in the chat box. You could do me a favor, please, and just let me know that you can hear me and where you're listening from. That would be great. Thank you so much. So just let me know in the chat box that you can hear me. That would be fantastic. And where you're listening from too. So let me know on that, and then we'll get started. Hope everybody's having a great day. At least here, I will tell you, I'm in Northern California today, and it is beautiful, absolutely beautiful today. So it couldn't be better. So with that, hopefully we will get started. So, all right, wait on that. That. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Just getting things set up for myself. Do it that way. Okay. All right, no problem. So let me get started. This is a question from our Zoom audience. So we'll start there and then we'll go to the other questions we have. So anyways, let's get started. So the first question we have is, what are your top tips to raising money from zero? Well, it's a pretty broad question, but let me give you the best answer that I can give you. If you're raising money from zero and you are just starting, and this is going to feel kind of contrarian, but so be it. It's going to be almost virtually impossible for you to raise money from anybody but your friends and your family. In today's world, unless there's a caveat in here, and I'll give you the caveat, unless you have a history of success where you can point to that history and say, look, I've made a lot of people a lot of money, then it's really difficult for you to go, raise money from somebody else. It's just not realistic. It's not likely to happen. So what do? Well, you do what founders have always done. And that is that we start with either our own money and we raise money from our friends and our family to get the company off the ground. It's what like 99.999% of all founders do when they get started. So I know that may not be the answer that you want, but it's the reality of the situation. It's just that it's really hard to raise money at the beginning. So we do what we can do. And that's my first tip is, you're going to have to start with whatever money you can. I guess what would be my other tips is start thinking a couple steps ahead. Start trying to build out your team. Start trying to recruit people already. Even if they don't want to join you yet, that's fine. They can join you later, but start building out your team. Start figuring out how you're going to get your product or your service to market really fast in terms of how you're going to do it on that limited budget that you have. And then don't neglect. I mean this really strongly because most of us, if we come, typically we have the idea first. We don't really think about the market. Really think about how are you going to get customers to know that you exist. That's like the first step is like, because if you can't get customers to know you exist, doesn't matter how great your product is, it's going to be very difficult to win. Then the second thing is think about how easy or hard is it going to be for your target customers to buy your product. Because if it's really hard, then maybe you should think about starting in another market, an adjacent market, a smaller market, a not so obvious market. So anyways, with that, I will move on to the next question, which is related to the first question. I'll go on to some of our other questions that we have here from our YouTube audience. The next question, can you raise money as a solo founder? Well, yeah, You can. It's the same caveat. And actually, I'm going to give you kind of a contrarian view on this too, is that you can raise money as a solo founder, but the bar is going to be higher for you because there's more risk. If you think about it from the investor's standpoint, right? There's more risk for the investors. The reason is because if it's just you, the investor, have to worry about your team. Where's your team coming from? Who are they? Are you going to be able to recruit them? If it's only you, that's a bigger risk. So what do? Just like I was suggesting in the previous answer, start recruiting your team now. Even if they don't join you until later, start recruiting your team now. Don't make it, please don't make it about I'm trying to save the equity. That's the dumbest reason you can have. Don't do that at all. Instead, when you find really good people who should join your company, be them as founders or as employees, bring them on. Doesn't matter what the timing is, just bring them on. If it turns out that you're a solo founder, then that's great. The most successful company I'm working with, company worth multiple billions of dollars now, started as a solo founder. However, he wanted to have a co-founder. His co-founder, his wife, didn't want him to join the company until the company had raised money. So he was there waiting in the wings to join, and he joined the second that they raised their money. But he wasn't a founder. But there were other stipulations that were put on him by his investors, and it did make it more difficult. He had a track record of success, and yet it was still really hard. So another answer for you. So if you have questions for me and you're watching on Zoom, then you can put them in the chat box on Zoom. If you're watching on YouTube, you can put them in the chat box on YouTube. So let's go to our next question. And here it is. Hey, Brett, I'm a startup founder in the health tech industry in Pakistan. Okay, very cool. And we plan to make blood testing very feasible and affordable, giving users free blood collections. Okay. My question is, what areas do I improve in my personal skill set to improve my chances of success? That's a great question. And I can tell you're already on the road to success because you're communicating very clearly. So what would I do if I was you is, well, number one is let me give you a book to read. Hopefully it's available. To me, it's my favorite business book of all time, which isn't going to sound like a business book, but it is. And the name of the book is called Crucial Conversations. And why is a book about conversing really important for you as a CEO? By the way, it's for everybody listening to this. 90% of what we do is communication. We have to communicate with investors. We have to communicate with employees. We have to communicate with vendors, customers, you name it. We're always communicating. And learning how to communicate in tough situations, stressful situations, the better you get at this, the less defensive you are when you're in these situations, the more likely it is that you will be successful. The more likely it's going to be that people are going to want to work with you. So from my perspective, I think it's a great book. This book literally changed my life when I read it. I was just starting to raise the initial funding for my company. I read this book and it was like a breath of fresh air. And I literally will reread this book once a year because I'm constantly learning how to become better as a communicator. So work on your communication skills. Practice your pitch. Practice your customer pitch time and time again so that you get really good at it. Learn how to listen, truly listen. Active listening, as it's called, so that you get better as a listener. All of these things will pay dividends for you. So that's my suggestion. I think it's a great question. Thanks for asking. So let's go to our next question. Hello, I am trying to sell software to people in my industry. Currently, they don't want to pay, but they want to use it. I'm letting them use it. How long should I wait before asking for money? Well, that's a very good question as well. It would worry me that they don't want to pay. I don't know what you're trying to charge, but it's really important that you start getting paying customers at some point in this journey, because the freemium model or free model, right? It has to at some point convert to paid. You have to go from free to paid. At some point in all of this, we need people to pay. So you have to think about this, even if it's a small amount. And I don't know what price point you're at, so it's kind of hard to kind of figure out all the various things you're dealing with. But you want to start getting people to pay. One way to do this is you can have a free trial at the beginning. You see a lot of software companies do this, like a free 7-day trial, 14-day trial, 30-day trial. Get their credit card information as part of the trial. And if they don't, unsubscribe, and you can send them emails saying, hey, your 30-day trial is running out, for example. Then they're subscribed in and away they go. This is a way to go immediately transfer in. You can do a reduced price at the start, maybe just $1. Maybe it's $100 per month typical subscription price. You sell it for $1 for that first month. Getting people to pay, even if it's a small amount, is worth it. So those are some suggestions for you of things you can do. All right, if you have questions for me, put them in the chat box on either Zoom for our Zoom audience or for our YouTube audience. Put it there as well. And I will be happy to answer them for you. If you're interested, you can join my free group for startup CEOs, Zero to Pitch. It's a way that you can get more information, more stuff from me than this, and be able to tap into some free courses that are there and everything else. There should be information on the YouTube channel about how to join the group there. It's a free group, free for life. Doesn't get any better than that. If you're interested in taking it to the next level, you can join my paid group, Zero to Pitch Gold. And in Zero to Pitch Gold, we can work together. I have daily office hours, and unlike today's format, which is a webinar format, which is kind of one-to-many, in Zero to Pitch Gold, my office hours are a meeting format, so we can converse and work together. It is all of $125 a month. There's a 14-day money back guarantee. You can quit anytime you want. It's a fantastic group, and it's a way, if you're really serious about growing your business and raising money, this is the group for you. Okay, with that little commercial over, let's go back to the questions. What are the key factors to consider before expanding from one city to multiple regions or globally? You guys are asking fantastic questions today. Yet another good question. Okay, if you're in one area, you want to make sure, and it's a really interesting question, because this goes to just about any business. Like if I've got one product really well, when do I expand to multiple products? If I'm in one city, when do I expand to multiple cities or globally, which is the question being asked here. And the high level answer is that, first of all, you want to make sure that you've nailed it in this city, that you have a process that you know that you could say, here are the 8 steps. Let's say there are 8 steps to being successful in a city. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever they are. You know exactly what those steps are. You've got the manual for it. You've got it written down. You know exactly how to do it. Then you can go to the city next door. So let's say that I'm in California. So if you're familiar with Northern California, which is where I live, I'm in what's called the South Bay region, the Silicon Valley region of Northern California. So let's say we started here in that region, but I wanted to go up to San Francisco, the city above us. So I could start here in this area, city number 1, right here. You don't want to go like from California all the way to New York, right? That's a long way to go. But if I'm going from Northern California to a city adjacent to the city I'm in, like from the Silicon Valley area, which includes San Jose, to San Francisco, that's a much easier system for me to manage. And there's going to be less differentiation between that city and the next city. So whatever you're doing, try and go adjacent. Don't try and go across the country or across the world. So like if I was in San Diego, California, and wanted to go to the next, would I go to Tijuana? Yeah, maybe, but it's probably easier for me to go further north to Los Angeles, which would be the next largest city that way. So make it easier for yourself. The less variability, the better. And then once you get two cities, so then we go to the third city. So maybe if I'm in San Jose area, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, then I'd go to Sacramento, which is just to the east, a couple hours to the east, hour and a half to the east of here. Easier. Then from there, maybe I go to Nevada and so forth and so on, if you get the idea. It would be the same if you're in Europe, right? You think about which European cities are close to each other. So if I'm in the UK and I start off in London, I'm not going to probably want to go to Paris next. I might want to go to a larger city in the UK next as an idea. So hopefully that answers your question. Make it easy for yourself. Less variability, the better. And then as you start go to the next city and you learn from that city, and maybe it turns into 9 steps in your process, you want it to be repeatable each time through. Okay. Hopefully that answered your question. So for questions, put them in the chat box and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Let's go to our next question. I need advice. I have a tech startup in Mexico. I registered in Delaware. Okay, so you're a US corporation, I'm imagining from that. But it is running, but I can contact an international, can I contact, oh, I see, okay. So I think what you're asking is, can you contact international angel investors? Sure. Of course you can. With investors, proximity matters. So what I would tell you in today's world, it is changing, but it's still, where is it going to be the easiest for you to raise money? If you're in Mexico, I don't know where in Mexico you are, but it doesn't matter. So it's going to be easier, likely, even though maybe there are less of them. It's going to be easier for you to raise money in Mexico than it is going to be in the United States in all likelihood. But if you want to try here in the US, sure, you can do that. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But what you would be looking for are US investors that are used to investing in Mexican companies. That's what I would be looking for. Also be thinking about, just like the first question I got today about, can I raise money if I'm at zero? I don't know where you are in the progression of your company, but if you have no revenue, no customers, and you're just starting and you're looking for angel investors, that's going to be a tough sell. If you have a product which is ready to launch, it'll become somewhat easier, but still a tough sell. If you have a product and you have some revenue, then it becomes easier. If you have more revenue, then it becomes easier, and so forth and so on. So you have to kind of look at where you are to be able to understand what's going to be available to you in terms of funding. And you have to be very realistic about it. Just because you're raising money doesn't mean people are going to give you money. Okay, another really good question. These are excellent questions so far today. So let's go to our next question. How do you convince yourself that the idea that you are working on is worthwhile? Oh, okay. It's a good question. Okay, another good question. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think about a criterion to do this. I wrote something on this, and I'm trying to remember what I wrote actually, because there's kind of a criterion you can go through, to do this. And I think the basic thing that I would do is, what would I start with? Start with the market first. Convince yourself, okay, let's say you have a great idea, and let's just assume whatever your idea is really good. It's groundbreaking, really good. Well, if there's no market for the idea, in other words, it's a market of 0 users for it, well, then it doesn't matter that it's a great idea. You're not going to sell anything. So my first step would be to do some quick cursory look at the market. You could probably do all of this in an hour. So I could do some research on the market, make sure that it's a big enough market for whatever my means are. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing is, can I build this idea? Can I build whatever my idea is, be it a software product, a hardware product, a medical device product, doesn't matter, whatever it is. Do I have the ability to build it? Okay, let's say I need people to build it. Can I access these people? The next step in the process. So I'm going to go to people now. Can I find the people to do this? And will they be able to join me? And will they be willing to join me? I have to kind of assess that risk. Let's say I'm through that part of the process. Now, I figured out I can build it. I figured out there's a market for it. Can I get to my customers? If that makes sense to you. In other words, can I identify the customers and can I make them aware that I exist, that my company exists, that the product exists? So next step, if the answer is yes to that in my cursory analysis, I'm on to the next thing. Can I sell to them? Is the sales process going to be achievable? Let me give you an example where it might be very difficult. Let's say I'm trying to sell something to the US government, right or wrong. That is going to be kind of a difficult process probably to do. Maybe it's going to involve a lot of different loops, finding a lot of different people to do it. And it's going to be challenging, right? Not going to be so easy to identify these people, just like going to a very big company, huge multinational company, to find the decision maker that's going to make the decision. All the different hurdles we're going to have to overcome is going to be very difficult. But let's say it's the reverse of that. Let's say it's a consumer product where it's just direct to consumers. If I can identify them properly and be able to sell them, okay, the answer is still yes. So I've kind of gone through all my various steps. I probably left something out, but that's a simple criterion that you could use to figure out whether your idea is worth it to go after. Look for yes at the beginning. Don't look for no, but kind of understand, how would I do this? How would I overcome this hurdle to build it? Because part of the problem is, if you ask your friends, hey, is this a great idea? Or you ask your loved one, people are always looking for, it's just human nature, looking for reasons not to do something, why it's not going to work. You want to go the reverse of that. Let me figure out how it can work. You can always talk yourself out of it later. Let's go to the next question. If I had a simple software product, which is valuable, but I want to sell to get budget to add more features. Okay, so I'm going to start with a very simple product. Okay, and then I want to add more features after I start selling it. That's the way I interpret the first part of the question. What are the best first ways to sell it? I was thinking to just visit people in my industry, offer it, and invite them to try it. Do you think something as simple as that could work? Absolutely. You're actually tapping into something that most people don't, for whatever reason, which is usually a mistake. Use your network at the beginning, especially for something like this in a business to business product. If you're already in an industry and you've recognized a way to do things, it's interesting. I was just talking to a founder this morning who is just starting to raise her initial funding. And she has a product, product's already selling, already has customers. She did it totally bootstrapped and started getting offers for people to buy her company, which is kind of cool too. And one of the things that she leveraged was her network to sell the product at the beginning. So yeah, absolutely. It's usually much easier to start with people that you know and see whether they'll buy your product rather than people that you don't know. And usually, for whatever reason, many of us start our companies and we're afraid to talk to people. We're afraid, to get an answer, which is usually a huge mistake, when you think about it. So instead, leverage your network. So yeah, absolutely. It's a really good way to start. Yet another great question. So if you have questions for me, please put them in the chat box for me on either Zoom or on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, either way will work. Another quick pitch here. If you're my YouTube audience and you haven't yet joined Zero to Pitch, this is my free group, lifetime free membership for startup CEOs. Doesn't get any better than that. You get access to this. We do pitch deck reviews once a month on there, only to the Zoom audience, by the way, not available on YouTube. So only to that audience. If you have a pitch deck you want me to review, I'll do that about once a month. It is free for life. There should be a link on my page on YouTube for that. That's all you need to do. If you want to take it up a level from that, you can join my paid group for startup CEOs, Zero to Pitch Gold. I have daily office hours in there. And as I was saying earlier, office hours are in a meeting format, so we actually get to talk to each other. and I'll help people with their pitch decks, their pitches in a much more detailed manner. Anything about their business, I'll help them on that as well. So it's whatever you need, I am there to help. And that group is a really fun group to work with. And people are just like you. They're all trying to grow their businesses and raise money for their businesses. And it's a very supportive group of people. So that's available to you as well. You can find that on the Zero to Pitch site. It'll be just a little link, join Zero to Pitch Gold. You click there, some testimonials, videos you can watch before joining, and you're in. Okay, let's go to our next question. And this comes from, oh, okay. Hello, Jorge. We are the company with the biomedical product. Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. If you have a question for me, you can put that in the chat box for me and I'll be happy to answer that. So let's go to our next question. Oh, this is another really good question. What's the best strategy to scale customer acquisition in new markets, not in existing markets? So that's the differentiation here, new markets, without overspending. Okay, this is a really, really good question. Give me a second to think about how I want to answer this. Okay, so I don't know whether this is the best strategy because all this is very dependent upon the market, the product, the everything that you're doing. But a generic answer, the glib answer is very carefully because you're right to be concerned about overspending. So if I'm in a new market, right, and I don't want to add a ton of resources, let's say I'm in market X, right, and I'm doing really well in market X, and I'm building up revenue, revenue's growing, but I see market Y as the next market to go to, and I want to be successful with it. But I don't want to overspend in terms of resources or anything else. So I'm going to, number one, I'm going to look at my budget in terms of what can I afford. And maybe you're already profitable in your existing business, which means that you can venture out into the new business, but you don't want to have the new business kill you. So you kind of want to budget out what you're going to spend for everything in terms of whatever your resources are to build your product or service, whatever the marketing resources are going to be, whatever the sales resources are going to be, and if it's a manufacturing product, to manufacture it as well. So you want to kind of understand that spend. You want to guess in terms of what your revenue growth is going to be. And then at the beginning, you're going to likely lose money in this new area. So you kind of want to see, okay, what's my pain point to lose money? So you have some idea of what we think is going to happen. And then from that, you'll figure out what you can and can't do because this will determine what your marketing channel is, what your marketing channel isn't that you can do because you have to kind of figure that out. So you have to kind of figure out what channels you're going to use. You have to figure out your business strategy for all of this. That's the simple-minded way that I would go at this in terms of how to go at this in a way that makes sense. So I don't burn myself out. So I don't put myself in a position where if we fail, we're out of business. Try and keep your company from making company killing decisions if possible. That's the overarching way I come at it. So let's go to our next question. Oh, can you help us with one-on-one consulting? It's out of my expertise. Yes, I know who you are, and I'm sorry, but if this is the person that reached out to me before, interesting, we're doing this in a public setting, but that's cool. Yeah, I don't think this is in an area where I can help you. So no, I'm sorry that this is something I can't help you with. Apologize. Okay, let's go to the next question that we have. Do you think I should pitch my software product as a huge vision, looking to expand, adding tons of new features, or just be like, hey, this product is extremely valuable for X reason. Try it, works great. The answer is both. I did a video on how to present your vision to investors on YouTube. So you can find that on my YouTube channel and watch that video and kind of explain in a little more detail than we can do here how to do this, but you want to, when we're talking to investors, we want to make sure of two things. As one of my original investors told me, let me tell you the story really quickly. So this is after we got funded, and we kind of had a two-part strategy where we're going to do one thing at the beginning and then eventually pivot to doing something second. And both were really integral to the vision of how we're going to build out our company. And as one of my investors told me after we were funded, he said to me, kind of joking, he said, I never invest in act two of a business. So what did he mean by this? The idea is that he meant if act one, in other words, the first thing you're going to do doesn't work, there isn't going to be an act two. The business is likely to fail. Yes, companies pivot and change and all those types of things, but in a black and white sense, if the first thing you do doesn't work, the odds of you getting to the second thing become more remote. Sometimes it happens, but don't count on it. So you got to make sure that first thing works. The first piece of your strategy has to make sense. But both things are important because let's say that my entry strategy, let me give you a way to think about this. Let's say that my entry strategy is to go after a market, just making this up. Let's say it's a $100 million market. Nothing wrong with that. $100 million market. If I'm successful, maybe I'll get to $20-30 million in revenue. It's a way to think about things. But my vision is I'm going to go attack this multi-billion dollar market next. But I know that this market is a great entry point for us. We're going to be more likely to be successful doing this at the beginning than going up against bigger competitors. We want to wait until we're stronger to go up against the bigger competitors. And this will build technical capabilities, other things for us, the ability to market and sell properly. And then we're going to go up the food chain to these other markets. That is the vision. The vision is the big, broad thing. We're going to go after these bigger things, but we're going to start here. Both are important when we're explaining to investors why they should invest in us. I hope that answers your question. So let's go to the next question here. Is it harder to get angel investment today than 3 to 5 years ago, in particular for SaaS or AI? Or are we in an era of startups being able to bootstrap on their own? There's a lot of yeses in this question. Usually at the beginning, when we're just starting our company, it's going to be bootstrap because the ability to get angel investors interested, there's kind of like a hierarchy to these things. At the beginning, the caveat is unless we have a track record of success or maybe there's some other limiting items. Usually at the beginning, it's going to be that we or our friends and our family, your parents, whatever, they're the ones going to be funding the business at the beginning. That's the bootstrapping phase of this. Once we start we have a product out in the marketplace, we have customers, we're generating revenue, then we start being able to attract angel investors. As we start going up the food chain some more, the revenue gets bigger, maybe into $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year. Now suddenly we can attract either bigger angel investors or potentially venture capitalists. Depends on where we are. And there's going to be a variance in all of these things, but you get the idea. So that's the chain. Is it harder or easier? 3 to 5 years ago, we were dealing with COVID. So it's probably a little bit harder then than it is now, to raise money. The markets will vary all over the place. Right now, there seems to be a lot of intense interest in AI for just about everything. But what I would tell you, just as a piece of advice, is ignore all of it. Don't even worry about it. And I understand that maybe that doesn't sound right because I know it's hard to raise money, period. But if you truly believe in what you're doing, none of this is going to matter to you anyways. So just focus on what you need to do. The market is the market. If it's harder, so be it. Sometimes that's a good thing because if you're successful raising your money, then there's less competition for you on the other end of it. Sometimes when the money's easy, you can get that initial slug of money, and then it's harder to raise the next amount of money. I was reading a Crunchbase, I think it was Crunchbase that published this about the number of unicorns that were formed 5 or 6 years ago that haven't been able to raise their next round of money and now are going out of business. And that number was astounding. So you can be worth $1 billion on paper and then be bankrupt if you're not careful. So I know it's kind of a broad answer to your question, but personally, I just wouldn't worry about it. Just focus. It's ever changing. There's never a perfect time to raise money. The market is the market. It is what it is. Just have a sense of urgency about it. And if you believe that you've got something great, then none of this is going to deter you from doing what you're doing. Okay, let's go to the next question. What is the best way to reach out to investors? The best way is typically through what's called a warm introduction. A warm introduction is when either you know the investor or somebody that you know can make an introduction to you to the investor. One of those two. 99 times out of 100, this is the best way to go. If we can't make that work, okay, cold introduction, cold emails, they work. I did cold emails as part of my investment strategy, and I was able to get meetings with them. There's a process to this. I've done a video on it, which you can search for on YouTube. And there's a way to do this. So cold email, not all is lost. You don't have to know everybody, but you'll be amazed if you focused on your network and just start building that network out. How many people know how many other people, and you'll be able to start getting to investors. But you can do cold emails, they work. Just the thing is with cold emails, number one is you have to identify the right investor. Number two is that if you think about it, right, there's the title of your email. If that isn't interesting to an investor, you're not going to open it. Number three is don't oversell in the email. I would tell you that too. If you try and sell too much, you make the email too long, too hard to read, it's going to be too difficult and the investor's just going to move on to the next thing. So I hope that helps. Okay, let's move to the next question. How do we ensure that our innovative e-commerce startup remains competitive against global giants like Amazon and local e-commerce companies? Okay. Well, let me broaden the question out because this is true of any company starting, right? It's the classic question of, what do I do if I'm competing against NVIDIA, for example? If I'm competing against Apple, Samsung, you picked out Amazon, any big tech company, Google, it doesn't matter who they are. How do I win? Well, the answer to this question, or what do I do if they enter my market? Either way. So the typical answer to this question is number one is try not to compete head on in something that these companies care about. Because why are you going to win if they care about this particular area of the world? It's going to be very difficult, or you're going to need massive amount of resources. Think like, if you think about like ChatGPT competing against Google and search, which is a way to think about ChatGPT's business. They have massive amounts of money. It's still unclear whether they'll win. It's a tough thing to do. Usually you lose that head-on battle. So what's the battle for us then? What's the right way to fight against a big competitor? We go after areas that they're not interested in or are adjacent to what they're doing, or maybe they don't have their best people on, or they haven't innovated in a long time. That's typically how you do it. And then the other way you win is because this is life and death to you. In many cases, it's just another market to a big company. And that makes a huge difference. I've been on both sides of this equation, both as a startup, having lived this, and then I've also been the big company, having lived this. And both are challenging. As the big company, sometimes a smaller company has that nimbleness that you don't have anymore. And they can beat you in an area that maybe isn't as important to you. It's always hard to beat somebody who really cares about something. But if it's not an area where all of our resources are going to go, where it's like the core of our business, if it's the core of our business, we're going to fight to the death as a big company. And it's going to be very hard to beat the big company. I've written about this. I've done videos on this. Very hard to win those battles. But if we go after peripheral things, you have a much better chance of success. I hope that answers your question. What are the requirements to join your Skool community? What are the circumstances that a startup founder or CEO would be denied entry? So when you go there to the school community, there are a few questions you have to answer about what you're doing. And those questions are reviewed. And assuming that the questions are answered properly, then you're in. Now, what will get you thrown out of the community is if you are trying to essentially promote, I'm going to call it no promotions. If you're promoting stuff that feels kind of scummy, so to speak, to people, if you feel like you're trying to take advantage of people on the site and you're trying to sell your scummy service, then you'll get banned in an instant. If that happens. And there have been some people that have been banned for doing things like that. We want the community to be safe. We want the community to be a safe place for CEOs because you're in a vulnerable place when you're a startup CEO. It's hard. It's challenging. And somebody out there selling their scummy service that promises riches and gold, we don't want those people, in our group. Let's move to the next question on our list. Would you wait for revenue traction to raise capital? If no, what would be your strategy to raise capital? I don't know whether it'd be a different strategy except who I would go to. As I've been pointing out, there have been variations of this question asked several times today. Would I wait? At some point, depending upon your money needs, remember, everybody has investors. Maybe you is the investor at the beginning, maybe your friends, maybe your family at the beginning, but we all have investors at the beginning. So in one sense, we're raising money. It's just a matter of who it's from. Once we get something at some point, it may be right. You'll have to figure this out about to go raise money from angels or larger groups of people that you can tap into. But from the other side of the equation, they have to be interested too. Now, when wouldn't I raise money if I don't need the money? Raising money if you don't need the money, there's no value in it. There's no utility in it. It's not great having investors. Usually investors are neutral. Sometimes they're good, but more often than not, they're neutral. Sometimes I'll tell you with angel investors, which is kind of interesting, you'll find angels will be interested in helping you. And that's part of the reason they want to be involved in the business. Sometimes this can be really good. Sometimes it's not so good. You have to kind of decide which one it is as you're talking to them. So I'm going to look at, as I pointed out before, there's kind of this funnel that you have to go through when you're looking at investors in terms of how much money I'm trying to raise, who can I raise it from, and where am I geographically? So if I'm here, in Silicon Valley, I'm going to try and raise money from people local in the Silicon Valley. Would make sense. Wherever you are locally, start there first. I'm going to want to, if I'm starting my company and I've already got a product out in the marketplace, let's say maybe I'm just starting to sell, I'm going to look for angel investors that are at that stage. I'm going to look for angel investors that are interested as another sort. I'm going to look for angel investors that are interested in the type of company I'm building. And that's going to hopefully give me a list of investors to go after. I'm going to tap into my network and ask my network, everybody that I know, can you help me? And see what comes back from that. Hopefully get some introductions from that. And then I'm going to also build up a list of people that I want to talk to and cold email them, and I'm going to go at them. And then from that feedback that I get, I'm going to iterate and make adjustments and iterate and make adjustments to what I need to do. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, got time for a few more questions. Do want to say again, if you're interested, join my free group of startup CEOs Zero to Pitch. There's a link for that here on my YouTube page that you can get to. Also, just so you know, inside of there, we do pitch deck reviews once a month. You get priority on these calls in terms of answering your questions. There's a community where you can ask and answer questions too. It's a great group. It's free for life. Doesn't get any better than that. If you want to take it to the next level, you can join Zero to Pitch Gold, which is the paid group. That is all of $125 a month right now. You can quit at any time you want. And in there, we have daily office hours, which are in a meeting format where you can talk to me about your pitch deck, whatever you want. You can do that. And that's about an hour a day. There's also courses in there that you can take advantage of. There's a community in there that you can work with as well. So that's the paid group. So let's go to our final set of questions here. What cold email structure would you use? My business is very sexy. I don't want to oversell myself, but I'm thinking on letting them know in the email that I can be a valuable partner stock picker. Okay. Um, I would suggest, because it's too hard to answer the question here, um, watch my video on how to do a cold email. That'll kind of give you the structure for doing this. But again, you don't want to oversell. You want to tell people, here's what I'm doing. Here's why I'm good at it, essentially. Here's what's valuable about us. Here's where we're at. And then you want to make a soft ask, in which isn't, hey, let's have a meeting. It's, if you're interested, here's, let me know what the next steps are, something like that. Don't put the bar higher than it needs to be. So that's my 3-second answer for you. Let's go to the next question on our list. For a startup, which is still in MVP stage, is it good to go out and get as many MOUs as possible with enterprises? Does that give a positive signal to raise pre-series for building the product? Well, yeah, it gives a positive signal, certainly. I mean, MOUs are good, but revenue is better. So what would be the next step would be, if you want to take it to the next step, great, you've got MOUs, but those are memorandums of understanding, right? They're just pieces of paper, they're just words. Doesn't mean anybody's going to buy anything. Why not get them to prepay you a little bit, to give you a down payment on whatever you're doing? That's more of an indication that they're serious, because once somebody has to open up their checkbook and write a check, then it becomes a little bit more serious. So keep pushing yourself to get people to buy, to prepay, whatever. Give them a discount, give them other things in conjunction with paying you in advance. That's the true test. That's going to make it easier for an investor to look and go, yeah, these guys are up to something. That's good. Okay, I think this next question is going to be way too broad, but I'll try my best. What are the most common mistakes startups make when scaling and how we can avoid them? Wow. Well, it's over. I think I answered this question actually earlier. It's typically overspending too quickly. And in fact, it's kind of funny. I think I have in my video, I believe it comes out tomorrow. Actually, I think I'm answering this question in that video too. So I'll wait for you can wait for that video to get a more detailed answer. But usually the mistake we make with scaling is we believe we see signals before they're truly signals. That's what I would tell you. So you want to make sure you truly you truly have the right signals to go increase your spend before you have it. Okay, let's go to our next question. If you have questions for me, you can put them in the chat box on Zoom or YouTube. Either one will work, and I will be happy to answer that for you. 1 second here. Okay, so here we go. Hi, Brett. I am a 17-year-old from India working on a fintech startup looking for pre-seed funding. What would be some things I'll have to keep an eye out for, and some advice for someone like me? Well, first of all, congratulations being that young and going for this. Good for you. Again, variations of the same question. So I don't know what stage you're at in terms of your company, whether you're just starting, whether you have a product in the marketplace, whether you have customers. All of that's going to determine what to do. Because you're so young, right or wrong, it's going to be harder for you. So who are the likely sources of the beginning of your funding? Let's say you're just starting out. It's going to be your friends. It's going to be your parents. It's going to be your family members. Hopefully, maybe you have a rich uncle or rich aunt or something. But those are the likely people that are going to fund your company at the beginning. If you have nothing and you're going to start pitching angel investors or VCs, it's not going to be very easy to do this. So you're going to have to be industrious. You're going to have to be creative in terms of how you do things. So really think about that in terms of that initial funding that you're going to get, because that's all you're going to have at the beginning. Don't overlook, how you're going to get to market, how customers are going to find you. Just having a great idea isn't enough. you have to figure that go-to-market strategy out as well. So that's another piece of what you're going to have to figure out, is that piece. So that's the second thing you're going to have to do. So you're going to have to think about how are you going to develop your product. It may just be you, because it's unlikely at 17 years old, unless you're in a wealthy family, that you're going to be able to afford having a team. Or maybe you and some of your friends are going to work for free on this thing together, which is great. You can start that way. So you have to kind of figure out, all these various things about how are you going to get to market? How are you going to find customers? How are you going to sell your product? How easy is it going to be? And do you have something that's of significant value? So hopefully that answers your question. All right, I think we got time for one more question today. So you can put more questions in the chat box, and maybe if I get done with this quickly, I'll be able to answer maybe one more, but let's see. So following up on the MOU question, okay, this is the question regarding, what do I do? I've got a product. Is it good to have an MOU? And I was saying, hey, you can do more than that, right? You can get customers to prepay and things like that. That's a better way to do it. Harder to do, but that's the smart way to go. So with that background, let's go to the question. Following up on the MOU question, we do not have the product yet, but a demo on how it works, the entire front end. They get to see the product would look. Will they pay for something like this, which is not done? Yeah. Sometimes people pay. This is the challenge when you're in a webinar format, right? It's so broad. It's so challenging to answer the question without because I have to give kind of a general answer. But yeah, people pay. You show them, hey, this is how it's going to work, and then you say, this is where we're at in the development, and we'll give you. Let me just give you an example. We will give you in return. You could say we'll give you free consulting services in return for paying in advance. We will give you this new feature when it comes out for free. There are all sorts of things you can do. It's up to you. You just have to be creative. You have to see what works. All right, I'm going to answer these other questions super fast. My wife and I have a small meeting with an investor friend. Don't really know how to begin. Okay, it's not really a question. I'm sorry for the abrupt answer. All right, so you don't know how to begin your pitch. Well, watch my videos on YouTube about how to start your pitch meeting and what to do. That's probably the best thing I can do to describe it to you. It's too hard to describe here, what to do in all the various steps. But watch my videos on that. That'll help you. And we'll make this the final question for today. What's your advice for companies going against new markets, emerging technology, and open source? My startup is a Gen AI audio. It feels like I'm always looking over my shoulder to avoid commoditization. Well, you got to move fast. That's number one. If you're in a new market, usually I'm sorry, I'm stopping myself because it's, you're competing against new markets or you're going into a new market. It's unclear to me, but let's say you're competing against, which it sounds like is what you're describing, is that you're competing against new technologies. If you're competing against new technologies, you have to innovate faster. That's the answer, essentially, is you have to find a way to be unique, and you're entering a new market, you say, okay. If you're entering a new market, I don't know whether this is an emerging market. Maybe that's what you're describing as new emerging markets can be challenging, right? They can also be really good. If you're entering in an emerging market, wow, this is going to be so dependent upon the market that you're going after, to give you a really good answer. You have to kind of figure out the market, the dynamics of the market to kind of figure it out. I'm sorry for it's almost too hard to answer that, give you anything specific of what to do. Um, New markets are challenging because you have to figure out how's new market going to work, what are the dynamics of this particular market, how quickly do people buy, what's important to them. So you're just going to have to study it and understand it and figure out what's the right thing to do. Does my $125 school community have one-on-ones with me every day? No. Um, no, I can't afford to do that at $125 a month. I'm sorry, no, it does not have that. What it does have is daily office hours, which are one to many. So that's what you get in the school community. If you want to join for a year membership, which there are two ways to do this. You can get a one-on-one meeting. You would get a one-on-one meeting with me that way if you wanted to do that, but that costs that would be a year membership, and that's roughly $1,000 to do that. And you get essentially you get 2 months for free in doing that. Plus, you get a one-on-one coaching call with me. But if you want one-on-ones, that would be my one-on-one coaching business, which is extremely expensive and is by invitation only, essentially, or application only is probably a better way to put it. All right. So with that, I'm going to end it today. I got to go, but thanks so much. Always a lot of fun to do these. Thank you all. Take care. Have a great day. Bye.